I did learn SQL for data analysis and it was totally worth it, but I could have done it much faster. Here's how I would do it today if I could start over. First, I made some mistakes. I googled free SQL courses for beginners and I did several because one is not enough, but then I just did a lot of overlapping material. Another mistake was doing generic courses not focused on data analysis, because then I learned a lot about how to create and manage databases, which actually wasn't needed at all for data analysis. When I moved on to advanced courses, I'm glad that I didn't make the mistake of buying something very expensive. Instead, I bought a few courses from Udemy for 10-15 euros each after discounts, and they have plenty of discounts. And some of those courses were actually really good quality. And today there are many more options, but from my experience, the best value for money is on those platforms that allow teachers to upload their own courses. What wasn't available back then when I was learning was, of course, AI. Now I use AI for learning all the time. One thing I really regret is that I found out about SQLite too late. I should have used it from the very beginning, but instead I was doing these exercises on sandboxes. I also tried to install databases, MariaDB, Postgres. I had trouble getting them off and so on. And I didn't realize that SQLite was on my computer that whole time and I could have just used it. So based on all of that, here is how I would learn SQL for data analysis today if I had to start all over again. So number one, today I would start from sitting down with coffee and AI and asking it to create me a roadmap for learning SQL specifically for data analysis. Because as a data analyst, you will probably only have read-only access to the database anyway. And that means that you don't need to create, manage, add data, anything like that. And that means that a huge chunk of SQL can be skipped. Number two, I would continue to learn within the chat window, asking AI to create exercises for my level, that way avoiding repetitive material and keeping the challenge at the right level. 3. I wouldn't focus on learning syntax by heart. I did it back then because I was doing these tests after exercises and they required to remember things, but I never really saw a point in it because the cheat sheets were available. And today, of course, AI can write it all for you. So why? Instead, I think that it's much more important to understand things deeply, why they work the way they work, and how to avoid the pitfalls. And yes, do ask AI to build that into the roadmap, the typical mistakes that most people make, and to craft some exercises to teach you to go around those mistakes. However, now I'm also going to contradict a little bit what I just said. When doing the exercises, I would actually still practice without using autocomplete or AI, but I would try to remember the syntax that I have just learned, just for the purpose of training the brain. Because just like with learning foreign languages, there's two types of recall, passive and active. And the thing is with active recall, the information stays in your brain for much longer. Number 4, I would combine SQLite and AI. So I would learn like this. I would have two windows open, my terminal and chat window. And then I would ask AI how to log into SQLite and then how to create, or I would just ask AI to give me the statements to create the database and all the tables with the data that then I can practice on. And then I would copy those statements, would paste them into the terminal, and then all the data would be created, the data would be saved in a file. Everything's very easy with SQLite, and that's a very good playground to practice. That's very quick and easy. And actually, in my opinion, it's also so cool that when I discovered that, I made a series of videos that you can see on my channel. To recap, If I had to learn SQL today for data analysis, I would do it like this. I would ask AI to make me a roadmap for my specific needs. Then I would keep learning in the chatbot window with the terminal on the side. I would ask AI to generate exercises for my level, my knowledge gap, to cover the typical mistakes and the mistakes that I make. I would do the exercises in the terminal and I would practice active recall, which is a given in a standard terminal anyway. I would prioritize deep understanding instead of learning syntax by heart. So there you go. Thank you and see you later.